Greetings and welcome back to Book of Shadows. In the last episode we explored a little bit with as Morishige, Masato and Mitsuki, aka Fukuro and Mitsuki, ran off after Emi, so we are alone again. We found Nari and Chihaya, and we got the camera of Takuchi so we could look through the photos of dead people, and Morishige is really crazy and really gets really hard by looking at dead corpses. So in any case, we are now here at this candle with a choice of a lifetime. To look back or don't look back. And we shall look back.
Morishige-kun! Yamamoto-san, Fukuroi-kun wa?
わからない。さっきまで一緒にいたけど、なんか斧持ってるやつに追いかけられて逃げてるうちに。
Yeah, I'm sure that happened.
心配だな。無事だといいが。
私は平気。この血は私のじゃないから。それよりやっぱりやばいよこの学校。さっきのやつがきっとここに迷い込んだ人たちを殺してるんだ。
Indeed, nice deduction skills there, Mitsuki.
僕はそいつを見てないから何とも言えないな。
私怖いよ。一人じゃ絶対私も。
よかったら一緒に来るかい？
いいの？
For both parties that would be the worst thing. And you're gonna see soon enough why.
まあ
Or
構わないよ。
maybe you do already know, depending on what thumbnail I choose for this video.
ありがとう。
Yamamoto, overcome with relief, suddenly grabbed hold of me.
ちょっと。
ごめんね。森重君は鈴本さんだっけ？彼女いるんだったね。
Not his girlfriend per se.
そういうんじゃない。なんていうか妹みたいなものだよ。
森重君みたいなお兄さんがいたら退屈しないだろうな。
そうかな。
Mitsuki is not acting herself.
どっちかっていうと、退屈な人間だと思われることが多いんだけどな。特に同世代からは。暗いな。ん？山本さん？
ちょっと待って、明かりつけるから。
なんだこの廊下。やけに。そうだ。本館でもこんな場所が。
And there's an open door right to your left. Right to your left. What? Directly to your right.
暗くて寒いね。
Maybe we should huddle up to get warm.
なあ、引き返そう。これ以上は危険だと思う。
Go ahead.
でも、もう来た道がないよ。
She's like, oh, it looks like we can't go back. What a shame.
しまった。そうだ、山本さん。あのアルコールランプを。
Yup.
あれはなくしちゃった。
No.
でも、ろうそくならあるから。
そんなものじゃ。
あそこに部屋が見えるよ。行ってみよう、森重君。
待て、危険かもしれないだろう。様子を。すまない。怪我は。
Well, this is just heading in the direction that this game does not need anymore. But, as I know what's going on, woo! You're gonna see soon enough what's going on.
平気だよ。
誤解しないでくれよ。俺は、いや、僕は。
This is just such an anime scene, but then it just goes like, no! This is not an anime scene, this is something very much different.
それより少しお話ししない？
何を言って。
私のことは嫌い？死刑に。
Bum bum ba.
誰だ。
It's not Mitsuki.
誰だと思う？死刑に。
やめろ。
Don't call me that. I tried to pick myself up off the floor, but she grabbed me tightly by the wrists.
話せ。なんで俺のことを、眉のことを知ってるんだ。
I struggled with all my might, and in the process I inadvertently slapped Yamamoto or whoever this was square in the face.
痛い。女の子に乱暴するの？しげに。
You should already know who that is, actually. But here we go. Now this is just a whole lot creepier. And also, what's going on with her left arm? It's like cut in half. Whatever. The skin from Yamamoto's face began peeling back and a little girl's face burst out from within, covered in blood and muscle tissue. Not in the CG there, but I guess that would be quite grotesque. I don't even know how it's possible, but black hairs burst out from Yamamoto's suit next, spreading across the ground like black wing unfurling. Immediately the musty smell began permeating the air, and I became aware of all the body parts around me. Hands, feet, entrails, and a veritable lake of blood. So quite literally, Sachiko was wearing not only... Basically Sachiko was Yamamoto's skeleton. That's actually a rather imaginative way to use a body.
お前はいつから眉をどうした。
どうしたんだろうね。しげに、しげに、しげに。よく泣くスズメだったよ。今は物静かな。自分の目で確かめるといい。
まさかそんなバカな。
私はお前を見ていたよ。面白い見込みがあるやつだってね。たまにお前みたいなのがいる。この学校と相性のいい変わり種がね。
何なんだお前は。一体俺をどうするつもりなんだ。
怯えているのかい？
Scared. This is going downtown.
無理もない。だけど分かってるよ。お前の恐れの対象は生きた人間の死ではない。
話せ。俺は
話してやろうとも。歩いていけ。あの扉へ。校舎、お前が探しているあの子のところへ。しげに見ないで。今の私は。
眉。
楽しみだね。お前の反応が。つまらなかったらすぐ殺しちゃうからね。
But if it's boring, I'll just kill you. So matter of factly and indifferently said. Then again, this mastermind of murder has been here for 50 years. True to her word, the girl let go of my wrists. Her body then began sinking into the floor, little by little, until there was nothing left of it. It was as if she were lying along the shore as the tide came in and slowly rose above her body, or maybe the school just swallowed her up. The only things that remained of her were Yamamoto's school uniform and that face mask made from her skin.
これは夢か
Ugh.
それとも俺はもうとっくに頭がおかしくなっているのかいやだとしても俺は眉に会わなくてはならない。あいつは生きている。そうに決まっている。眉、今行くぞ。
Actually, Mayu has not been alive in quite some time, Morishige, which you will find when you go into the infirmary. Which you have done already, but you didn't realize, but now you will. And you will go for crazy, though. That's the reason why this is a wrong end. Because in the real ending, Morishige does not actually become aware that Mayu is dead. In any case, we have that wrong ending tackled. So now we can continue forward into the real ending of this chapter. Again, and this time we do not look back. Just like the
振り
note
返っ
said.
たらどうなるっていうん
What happens if I do bad things? Do not look back. Yamamoto is still going to arrive here.
来ないで
Though, as you can see, her disposition towards us is very much different.
どうしたんだ袋井君は。
うるさい来るなってばお前もあいつの仲間なんだろ
錯乱してるみたいだな。何があったんだ山本さん。
触るな血が手に血がお前やっぱりお前も
誤解だよ。これはさっき死体を調べた時に。
おかしいって思ったんだあんなに平気で死体に触ってやっぱりだ
これじゃ何を言っても無駄だな。
私は騙されないもう引っかからない
And in the last game, if you remember, we actually met up with Mitsuki as Satoshi and Yuka, and she was very much like this, so something happened in between these two scenes. Well, guess what? You're gonna see it. And you're also gonna see what happens to Mitsuki. Exactly.
やかましい女だ。生きている人間はうるさくてかなわないな。人は寡黙な方がいい。
The value of silence. Just as one of my friends always says.
山本さんもう行ってしまったのかい。
Well, it's not like you care. And?
どこか落ち着ける場所へ行こう。あ、そうだ。またあそこに。
What goes around?
そういえば今日は眉にセビリアの理髪師の録画を頼まれていた。
And we are back right where we started. And here I was again. I pressed the button of my phone to shut off the second alarm I set. If this time display were accurate, then there was no chance of making it home in time to record the show for Mayu.
後で眉に謝らないとな。
I slid my finger naturally, almost automatically, from shutting off the alarm to opening my folder of saved photos. There was no sound in the room other than the tone of my button presses. And virtually no light other than that which shone from the LCD screen, or so it seemed, anyway. Yet this was my rock. In this place I could truly relax. Here and here alone, I felt at peace. The air was filled with overpowering aroma of blood and entrails. It would be enough to make most people vomit, but for me, it was a smell to savor. I'd even describe it as comforting. Perhaps it's because it reminded me that I was in her presence. She, who decorated the wall like a flower in full bloom. When I sat across from her, I felt more at ease than I could possibly convey in words. Nice way to ruin the beautiful scene of disturbingness. And here we are again. Mayu is here, and yet Shikini does not realize it. It was as if she'd always be here for me, as if she were waiting for me. And sure enough, whenever I felt weary or needed respite, the door to this infirmary would always open for me, despite its tendency to the contrary. Each time it did too, I would always be drawn in as if the room were swallowing me up, and my eyes would always happen upon this offering first. This girl upon the wall, slowly drying and slowly rotten, would always be there to greet me, and never once did I tire of the sight.
随分集まったな。死体の写真。
But you, Mayu, you are the masterpiece of his work. And there is Even though this is quite a morbid scene, it's actually quite beautiful how Morishige is most drawn to Mayu's corpse, even though he's not aware that it's Mayu. Because, you know, they kinda did love each other. Kinda. At least Mayu did. Morishige probably was like, oh, I have no time for this kind of relationship nonsense. But no, that's not it. He loves her. He has to. I began talking to myself, or maybe I was talking to her. Within my phone's memories were stored some of man's most sensual, most voluptuous objects, the art. And she was the tip of the brush, the grand prelude. I'd amassed a whole other building's worth of beautiful sculptures to admire now too. I was thrilled to bursting.
これだ。
And here we are. This was the sculpture known as Mitsuki Yamamoto in life, but in death she was my property. One of many pieces of found art. Those spirited eyes, now dulled and clammy, those lips that spoke such harsh words, now stained with blood, her abdomen shredded, her innards exposed. So alluring, so captivating was she now. Sometimes destroying that which is beautiful only serves to make it more beautiful. And truly, this was the proof.
しかし、やっぱり残念だな。
It was a shame that I could only gaze upon these gorgeous works of art within these school grounds. Before returning home with Mayu, I'd need to erase every one of these photographs from my phone. It seemed like such a waste. The world in which I once dwelt was far too narrow-minded to accept these masterpieces. It was often a hard place to call home. But as long as I had Mayu with me, I could endure. And to that end, this folder was an obstacle, a detriment, a hurdle to be overcome before I could rejoin the world of the living. I needed to delete it, to put it all behind me.
でもまあ、いいか。まだ。帰ってからで。
A journey you will never take. Shangri-La, Rizokyo. Chapter 5 clear. Chapter 5 completed. Chapter 6 Meyer. Chapter is now playable. Tetsuya Kakihara, Tsubasa Yonaga, Haruka Tomatsu, and Taira Kikumoto. Soulful testimonies unlocked in bonus menu. We shall save the system data, and even though it said that Chapter 5 is now complete. There are extra in Chapter 5 if you replay a certain part. A certain part which happens to be this one. So we shall do it now. Examine this man. Again. And now,
自身
unlike before, well, after this scene, we came to the candle, and after the back, there should be a different scene now. Something hit me hard right in the back of the head. I began descending face first toward the ground. Damn it. It felt like I was falling in slow motion though. The ground just kept coming, yet for some reason I couldn't even put my hands out to break the fall. It was like I was being slowly swept toward a wall by some giant wave. My glasses fell from my face, and I distinctly remember watching them roll around. And yes, these extra scenes will actually tell what happened to Fukuroi and Mitsuki. Although if you remember from the first game, we actually saw that in the beginning of the chapter 3. Well, not what happened to Mitsuki, but what happened to Fukuroi at least. Oh. Mitsuki's panicked screams brought me back to reality. Suddenly I remembered what was happening. She and I had pursued Urabe from the pool back into the school building and found her quickly enough. Unfortunately, she was already dead. Her head had been smashed open to the ground like a roasted chestnut. Who could have done such a thing, we thought. And like it or not, it seemed I'd now learned the answer. Mitsuki was inconsolable, understandably. But after some doing, I'd finally managed to drag her away from Urabe's remains. We just began walking back towards the school entranceway when I got stuck from behind and found myself careening toward the floor. I was losing focus, but could still make out the pool of blood spilling from my head, accompanied by the sound reminiscent of a leaky faucet. I do not know how that word is actually pronounced, but I like to say faucet. And unfortunately, I could also make out the vague form of a man standing over me, raising whatever he'd hit me with into the air for another strike. No, he isn't going to wait at all. I instinctively shielded my head with my right arm and felt every nerve ending and every muscle in it twist unnatural as the blunt object came down. Mitsuki's tomboyish face looked uncharacteristically wrinkled and puffy, with tears streaming down both cheeks. Or maybe it was just my blurry vision. Mitsuki! Run, Mitsuki, run! Mitsuki's sobbing scream and frantic footsteps began receding into the distance. As we know, she ran outside like the first game. This made me feel a little better. At least she'd be safe, I thought. It took only moments for my vision to go completely dark, but then I had taken a hammer to the head. Still, considering what I'd just been through, I'd expected to be unconscious by now. But I wasn't. I could feel every part of my body clearly. I kind of wished I couldn't, considering, but I was pretty sure I could still move, at least for the moment, so I decided to do my part. With my uncrossed left arm I reached out blindly, felt my attacker's leg and he began turning to pursue Mitsuki, and grabbed on tight. I wonder what actually happened to him if he speaks like that. Probably quite an unsightly mess his head must be. Mitsuki was important to me. But was I still alive? I couldn't even count the number of broken bones I'd suffered, and I could still feel every one of them. My head, my arms, my ribs, every part of me was throbbing with agony. No one part of my body hurt more than another. Every injury was unbearable. Actually, you can see what Fukuroi looks like in the manga of Book of Shadows. So go look at that if you wish. It is actually quite an unsightly mess.
驚いたな。この状態で生きてるのか。
Now, riddle me this. Who speaks like a hunk and looks like one too? Someone was next to me, down on one knee, head right at my ear from the sound of it. A young man, probably around my age.
聞こえてるか。何があった。
It's Kisame! Yay! From one bad person to another one. I couldn't see a thing at this point. Not even vague shapes, but the voice addressing me sounded somehow familiar. I felt this was someone I could trust.
Minna.
Yeah, go after Mitsuki, Kisame. Save her! In your own freakish, disturbing, unnatural way.
Yamamoto. Ah, 頼まれた。ちゃんと面倒見てやるよ。
Even without seeing his face, I could tell he was sneering when he said this. Then in the next instant, I felt something hot bore into my abdomen.
お前はもう楽になれ。もっとも、ここじゃ死んでも痛みは消えないらしいけどな。どうでもいいだろ。お前はもう死ぬ。
Mitsuki. Run! It's time to run like a motherfucker. Which way? Oh, Jesus. To the second floor. To the idiot mobile. Because there are two rockets here, so let's get killing. Ba-dum-ba. His expression never once changed. He was like some kind of twisted life-size doll with one face. No doubt the face he'd be wearing when he killed me. The last face I'd ever see. What could I do? What options did I have? Light the lamp, let's try something else first. Because because that surely works. same sort of smell one might catch while walking past a ramen stand. Ramen.
そういえばお腹すいたな。
What's cooking?
千早、聞こえてる？もし聞いてたらお願い、忘れちゃダメだよ。誰？女の子の声だ。泣いてる。何があっても絶対諦めないって約束したよね。ナナや光見つけてここから逃げるんだよ。怖くても寂しくても自分の身は自分で。千早、聞いてる？私もうあんたを守ってやれないからさ。頑張るんだよ、千早。
We're in for some very nasty business.
何よ。暑い暑いよ。嫌だ、助けて。お母さん。死にたくない。やだ、暑い、苦しいよ。
What was happening to her? My mind had been in a rather hazy state, but this poor girl's terrified screams, as if someone were tearing her heart out, brought me back to reality. I realized that my hands and feet were bound to a chair, and I was facing another young girl who was similarly bound and writhing in pain. She was wearing a school uniform and I didn't recognize, so she must have been brought here from some other junior or senior high school. Were it not for the uniform and the voice, I might have had a tough time determining gender, as her face looked neither male nor female, young nor old. It was simply too burned to discern anything at all. From the top of her head down to her neck and even halfway down her torso, she was thoroughly charred. A sight we have actually seen in chapter 2. This is what happened to Nari. She'd essentially been browned, and virtually all her hair was singed off. Not unlike a Peking duck hanging outside a Chinese restaurant. Her skin was thoroughly cracked, with bits of pink flesh oozing through here and there. And her eyes looked blank, cloudy and watery, like the bottom of an order of sunny-side-up eggs, only her teeth remained relatively intact. I have no idea how much time passed after that. For a while, the only real sounds were her chair rattling as she shook, and her murmurs of agony. Then all that stopped, and the girl fell silent. Considering where she'd been burned, I suspect her lungs must have given out in the end. Though really, it could have been any of a number of things.
なんなの？なんなのよこれ。
My mind was a blank slate. I was beginning to lose my grip on reality and may have even laughed a little. I was in a home easy classroom, maybe. A science lab? And all around me were arms, legs, heads and other body parts, all simmering in pots and pans. None of it seemed real. It was like I was watching some bad horror movie on TV. Except there was odor and heat, and both were really getting to me. I was getting nauseous, but not from the smell. It was instead from the thought that this aroma of human flesh boiling and frying was making me hungry. As I fought to hold back my fear and hunger-induced vomit, I suddenly sensed a pair of eyes coldly staring at me. I looked in the direction from which I'd felt this sensation, and saw before me a little girl in a red dress, just standing and watching.
いい時に目が覚めたのね。ちょうどあなたの番が回ってきたところよ。
やだやだまさか冗談。
Mitsuki, you are destined to have a really bad wrong end in this game, so here we go. The little girl lifted a frying pan from a nearby gas burner and brandished it in her right hand. Steam rose from the hot pan and I could see bubbling oil spattering all along its surface.
あなたはどんな歌を聴かせてくれるのかしら。
I could see the expression on her face clearly now. Mischievous, hungry and positively jubilant, without even a trace of sympathy or remorse. And we are Ghost Chow. Ba-da-da-da. That went rather badly. And yet there's still wrong ends to go. This episode is just full of sadness and misery. So I think I know what I'm gonna name this episode. Right, let's go back. And instead of choosing to do something else, we're gonna light the lamp and try to fight our way through this fate that we have been subjected to. Also, this music that comes on when I choose to light the lamp is rather amazing. Rather good. Like, it actually gives you a sensation that you're gonna be good. It's okay. We are fighting against our fate. We are going to prevail. That kind of music. You're gonna see it soon enough. Light the lamp. With Adrenaline's help, I managed to get the matchbox out of my bag, withdraw a match and even unsuccessfully strike it a few times, all in an instant. But too late. Finally I got a flame, but it wasn't fast enough. The expressionless giant hammer struck me full force in my right knee. I had nothing left to lose at this point, so I just threw the alcohol lamp haphazardly. It struck the extortionist man's raised hammer and shattered. A sizable amount of methanol spilled from the shards all over his face and chest, and there, thankfully, it burst right into flames. The man's entire torso was immediately engulfed. The hammer fell from his hand. I did it. Burn slowly, you bastard.
ほら見ろ、エミとフクロイの仇だ。この人殺し。何を？来ないで。早く。
It isn't that easy to kill Yoshikazu. His flaming hand grabbed my wrist. I could feel my skin instantly blistering, and then, mere moments later, my whole uniform went up. Burn, baby, burn.
私が暴れるのが気に食わなかったのか。男のもう片方の手。一瞬、目の前が真っ白になった。後頭部が床板に叩きつけられたらしい。尾骨が潰れたのがはっきりとわかる。大量の鼻血が飛び散ったけど、もちろんそんなもので火は消えてはくれない。そして 私には朦朧としていられるような時間も与えられなかった。男の手が
And now,
落ちていたハンマーを拾い、その焼けた鉄の金槌の部分を顔に押し付けてきた。
now this is the definition of face melting.
生卵を落としたような音がして、今までとは比べ物にならない灼熱感が。一瞬で視野の半分が真っ暗になった。目が見えない。焼きつぶされたせいだ。顔の皮がただれ、ブツブツと泡立つのがわかる。肉も焦げる。奇妙に香ばしい匂いが鼻腔を刺激する。
And now, encore!
男は私以上に炎に包まれながら眉一つ動かさずハンマーを持ち上げた。ベリベリと私の顔の皮を剥がしながら。男は何の考えもなく一つの作業を行うように私の顔をめがけて振り下ろ。
Bada bing, bada boom. That was a rather good wrong end. Woo! Mitsuki gets a really bad wrong ends actually. And also she has a really good scream. But now with that we have every single wrong end from this chapter. And, well, also the real ending, so we have everything gathered. But there's still something left in this chapter which we have to do. And that is to see what happens actually if you escape Yoshikazu. And like you probably remember, in the first game Mitsuki ran to the second wing to escape Yoshikazu, so that's what you need to do. To the covered walkway. And we are here, second wing, first floor. We did not meet up with Tokiko for some reason.
黒崎がきっとこの校舎のどっかに。知らせなきゃ。
I ran anywhere and everywhere looking for Kurosaki, screaming his name at the top of my lungs, but he simply was nowhere to be found. Kisame probably got to him already.
黒崎!
Art room. Not in here either. I had no idea when that horrible expressionless man would show up again with his giant hammer. Every little sound was making me cower in fear. What I needed was a weapon, something to defend myself with. There had to be something like that in here, right? Yes, I actually know where to find such. There's nothing of interest here. That creep could come barging in at any moment. I have to find a weapon. There's nothing of interest here. Nothing of interest there either. There either. It's in here, but I need a palette knife. Nothing there. Here. There's an oversized chisel in one of the drawers.
これなら武器になるかも。とにかく身を守らないと。くそ、震えるな。
I carefully took the chisel into my quaking hand. I wasn't sure if I'd actually be able to fend off an attacker with it, but it was certainly better than nothing. Yep, let us go. And now...
黒崎、やっぱりいない。どこ行ったのよ。
to another dimension. Where else?
街とか変わってる。今なら黒崎と合流できるのに。黒い、ごめんね。私一人で逃げて。
There was nothing you could do for him.
怖くて怖くて頭の中パニクって。フクロエは私のこと構ってくれてたのに。臆病者だよね。もし私が男
You
で
did what anyone would have
勇気
done.
と力があったら、黒崎や木南くんみたいな強い男子だったら、フクロイのこと助けてあげられたのに。
Speaking of these people,
誰か来る。誰さっきのあいつだったら私。
山本無事か。
木南くん。
it's always so goddamn. Yay! Kisami's here. He's big and strong and doesn't fear anything. And he's also a murdering psychopath. So yeah, good job, Mitsuki. You ran away from Yoshikazu, who just mindlessly kills, to Kisami, who actually kills for a reason. Which is better, I do not know, but you are in no less of a trouble than before.
探したぞ。
Tall and handsome, but always just a little on edge. He never changed one bit. This was Yuya Kisami, one of my classmates.
木南くん。フクロイが。エミも。二人とも。
山本、大丈夫。大丈夫だ。事情は大体分かってる。
だって二人とも殺されたんだよ。あの変な男に。
ああ、知ってる。さっき俺も見た。この彫刻刀はこれでそいつと戦おうなんて思ったのか。
私なんかじゃかなわないだろうけど、でもただ殺されるよりはって。
バカだな山本。こんなもの必要ないんだよ。
Kisami cupped my right hand between both of his, as if consoling me, and gently removed the chisel from my grip. He was so gentlemanly about it, his touch soft and caring. But his intentions anything but.
俺が今お前の恐怖を
I'll allay all your
すっ
fears.
きり終わらせてやるから。
Allay? Alright. Right!
かわすか。動けるな山本。
何するの。冗談は。
あんまり変わらないと思うけどね。俺が本気でも冗談でも山本が死ぬことにはさ。
What was going on? Why was she doing this?
なんで。何。やだよ、やめて。
さっきの話だけど一個訂正な。フクロイは殴られて死んだんじゃない。刺されて死んだんだよ。こんな感じでブスッと。逃げるのか。疲れるだろ。あまり無理するなよ。
You can always try.
どうしてこんなことに。
Because
みん
he's
な
a
で
psychopath.
休んで勉強して他の話して笑っていつまでも友達だって。
He's a murdering lunatic.
それなのにわからないよ。
And here we go. This is why Mitsuki was really paranoid in the first game and also earlier with Sheik. Zigeni. Chikeni. There's a candle. This is the same as before, but there is one more scene.
振り返ったらどうな
Don't look back, of course, because we get a wrong end. Mitsuki comes down as before.
来ないでうるさい
錯乱して
This is the same as before.
おかしい私は
But now, this should be slightly different.
やかましい女だ生きている人間はうるさくてかなわないな山本さん
Oh. I ran as fast as I could, as far as I could. It was obvious to me that even Morishige was out of his mind. There was no one left I could trust.
上だ上へ逃げれば
よう山本
I just imagined Kisame like waiting at the top of the stairs, leaning on against the wall, looking like, "Oh, hi! Look who's here!" Without even a moment's hesitation, my classmate Kisame suddenly swung a giant chisel in my general direction, narrowly missing me. Meow! My cat just meowed.
大丈夫か
Are you okay?
逃げ惑うのもいいけど無理するなよ体力は温存しておかないと
We run, but we cannot run forever.
この辺でいいか
God damn it, Kisame.
大丈夫か
Daijoubuka? Every time he goes and asks that. In the first game, also with Yuka.
やめてよ
え何をだ
ひどいことしないでよ私あんたに何もしてないじゃん
そうだ返さなきゃなこれ
A sudden burning pain shot through my body, shaking my whole field of vision. The fat, dull blade of the chisel had been forcibly plunged deep into my thigh, all the way up to the handle.
感触がやはり違うんだな男と女とでは
Ugh.
なるほ
That sounds slightly sexual.
痛い
There wasn't much I could do to resist. Not only had he knocked me over, but he was kneeling on the backs of my hands, holding me in place quite effectively. And now we see what happened to Mitsuki. But Mitsuki is actually one of the few who defies Kisame to the very end and manages to not give in to Kisame's little scream fetish. Even though Mitsuki's screams are rather good.
いいぞ正直だその反応嘘をつかない奴は好感が持てる
I do you violence.
本番と行くかこいつで
Yuya Kisame had twisted grin on his face. He slowly brought his right hand into view, and in it was a proper knife, glinting in the dull light.
こんなこと
山本ほらここお前の腹に
I could feel Yuya Kisame reach up from under my skirt and press the cold blade of the knife against my abdomen. And then with one thrust, the knife was completely inside my body. This is getting reached up to the skirt. It was completely inside my body. This is getting really sexual all of a sudden. But then again, Morishige and Kisame are goddamn paraphilia duo here, doing God knows what with corpses. And don't worry, in the next chapter we're gonna see something creepy from Kisame's perspective. So it's not just Morishige. Here we go. My thoughts became jumbled. The pain was so intense, it felt like my brain was on fire. It took me a moment to process the sensation of foreign body lodged unnaturally within me. I could feel all the blood gushing out from the wound.
いいぜ山本、その調子だ。いい声聞かせてくれよ。
I'd never felt anything even remotely like this before in my entire life. I couldn't even describe it if I wanted to. The pain receptors in my body were off the charts. I couldn't comprehend the things I was feeling. But despite my confusion and agony, I knew one thing for certain. If I couldn't stop this from happening right now, I was going to die. Every part of me was in an agreement on that. My nerve endings were screaming it, and my brain could focus on a little bit. I might as well have been on fire. It couldn't hurt any more than what I was experiencing. And here we go. No, it was too late for me. I could tell that the wounds inflicted were irreversible, irreparable. I had to accept it. I was going to die. I'd begun vomiting blood, and it was beginning to lodge itself in my respiratory tract. Breathing was becoming harder and harder with each passing moment. My abdomen had been completely minced at this point, and the pain was so intense that I wished I could just leave my body altogether. My arms and legs were cold and numb, and my sense of reality was beginning to waver. My last breath couldn't be far behind. And yet, Yuya Kisame was smiling. It was a distant, relaxed smile, as of someone looking up at the stars or smelling a rose. It was the smile of a psychopath, the smile of a person about to end my life. For no particular reason.
ちょっと声が小さくなってきたんじゃないか。もっと聞かせてくれよ。
Here we go.
誰がお前なんかに
I couldn't believe those words were coming out of my mouth. I could barely speak through all the blood I was spewing. But I was standing my ground.
あ？
意地でもお前の思い通りに
For just a moment, Yuya Kisame's psychotic grin turned into a bitter, scornful frown. But then as quickly as it had vanished, the smile returned.
なんだそりゃ。抵抗のつもりか？我慢なんてするなよ。おい。どうした？声が小さいぞ。ほら叫べよ。いてんだろ。会話しようぜ会話。
Bittersweet end where Mitsuki dies defying Kisame.
なんか言うことあるんだろ。泣きたいだろ。命乞いしたいだろ。
I was concentrating so hard on biting my lip and holding my mouth closed that I swear I'd forgotten how to breathe. I think I even broke my molars from the sheer force of my determination not to yield to Yuya Kisami's twisted desires, and I didn't even care. I'd have no use for my teeth ever again anyway. I wouldn't be eating anything where I was going. I wouldn't scream for him to stop. I wouldn't call for help, and I wouldn't beg for my life. My life was already over. All I had left was the knowledge that I'd go out quietly, without giving this sick freak any measure of satisfaction.
俺の方を向けよ。無視するなよ。話せよ。言葉を。
No, Kisame, you've met your match. Mitsuki will not yield anymore. He was beyond redemption. There was absolutely nothing I could say or do to help him. I could either waste away silently or feed his psychosis. I could never make him understand how I felt at that moment. I could never convey to him just what he'd done to me. Death was my best and only option.
Yamamoto さん、君も死んだのか。
And with that, the only two who are left are Morishige and Kisame, who are both insane. This was definitely the body of Mitsuki Yamamoto. Her stomach and abdomen had been stabbed dozens upon dozens of times and were practically liquefied. They looked a bit like what the hell is that? Gazpacho. Her body was still warm to the touch too, meaning her death must have only just occurred.
不思議なもんだな。ほんの数分前に話した人間がこうして死んでいるっていうのは。だけど山本さん、綺麗だ。とっても綺麗だ。さっきまでとは雲泥の差だ。
So one person enjoys killing them and then the other comes enjoying their death. It's just so sick.
君は今完全に自分のすべてをさらけ出して。
But the thing is, I know what becomes of Morishige and also what becomes of Kisame. So.
いいよね。君を連れて行くよ。
In the end, they both get what's coming to them. Well, at least Morishige did not harm anyone. All he did was fap the corpses and take pictures. Kisame, on the other hand, killed a lot of people, actually. I withdrew my phone and flipped it open and switched over to camera mode, where I immediately set about framing her remains at just the right angle. I didn't mind if it was just her image on that tiny screen. To me, it was as good as having the real thing in my pocket. And yeah, pan the shot. Nice. The appeal was identical. It was as if I could freeze time on this moment and preserve her just the way she was.
やっぱりだ。俺自身の目で見て、触れ、匂いを嗅いで、こうして生の君を知ったから。生きていた時の君を見て、声を聞き、感情に触れていたから。スクイーン。見てくれよ。こんなに綺麗に通れた。もう君は俺だけのものだ。
Morishige is going really crazy.
たまらない。たまらない。君はひどいやつだな。俺をこんなに興奮させて、心をかき乱して。 どこか
And finally... The same thing happens as before.
帰って
Morishige
から
is
で
pretty much the only one who is left. And this chapter ends there, in its entirety. And everyone is gone. Dead, or dying, or darkening. And with that, chapter 5, Shangri-La, has been completed. Completely. And now, we have unlocked the 6th chapter, Meyer. But, we will look at that in the next episode. Thank you all so much for watching, I will see you in the next one.